Hello everyone, welcome to VPP Insights. Today we will learn how to adjust ocean supply chain strategy during COVID-19. When COVID-19 first hit China in a significant way, it was during the traditional Lunar New Year time of the year, in which Chinese factories were shuttered to allow the workers to celebrate the lunar year with their families, typically in the hinterlands. But when those factories are slow to return online due to the virus, there were goods being produced at a much reduced level, so the ocean carriers then immediately began to implement blank sailings in response to the reduction of factory output. So this was in February, a supply side problem. Now we fast forward to March when COVID-19 became a global pandemic. As stores were shuttered in the US and in Europe because of these stay-at-home orders and social distancing guidelines, demand for these factory goods started to be reduced as well into a pretty significant downward trajectory. So, as a result of that, retailers in the US and in the Europe began to cancel their orders because their stores were closed, and by the way, their distribution centers were full. And so ocean carriers then immediately extend their blank sailings, not because there weren't enough goods that were being shipped. It was now because the consumer stopped buying those goods, then this became a demand problem. When it comes to market outlook for ocean supply chain, prior to COVID-19 pandemic, the global container trade volumes were forecasted to increase by approximately 5% in 2020. Now that we are in throes of the economic downturn driven by this pandemic, the forecasts have been adjusted downward, obviously with leading experts, now projecting a best case scenario of 10% contraction in volumes in 2020. Now this is a 15% points swing in the wrong direction. So this is 10% contraction in global containerized trade volume translates to roughly 17 million TEU globally that will just disappear into year 2020. As of today, we have seen roughly 400 blank sailings globally, and that translates to roughly 20% reduction in capacity in the Trans-Pacific trade and about 30% reduction in capacity in the Asia-Europe trades. Let's also be clear that this is not a matter of ocean carriers with a holding capacity on a whim. So this is a case in which the cargo volumes and the demand has been so reduced that the ocean carriers are simply trying to match the capacity that they are offering to marketplace against this declining demand. So the impact of pandemic is significant, to say the least. In terms of financial viability, it's pretty challenging, and for ocean carriers, they're going to need to do what's necessary to prop up their rate level and then to simultaneously reduce operating cost. On the rate level front, ocean carriers have demonstrated a very good discipline and decisiveness in their approach to capacity control, and they have quickly come to an agreement in blank sailings amongst their major carrier alliances. The reason being ocean carriers are responded to demand drop very quickly. There are a couple of reasons. Number one, it reduced the cost of vessel steaming such as fuel cost and port charges. For example, gas money and parking fees for the vessel. Number two, as the demand for consumer goods drop, the carriers are reducing their supply of capacity to avoid a collapse of the freight rate. So it's estimated that worst case scenario of a market rate crash could result in roughly 23 billion US dollar losses on a collective basis. But if the carriers are able to match capacity to the dropping demand, thereby keeping rate levels at a compensatory level, the collective loss to the industry may be limited to roughly 6 billion US dollars in losses. According to the freight rate indices, today current rate levels are holding up relatively well due to this quick reaction of ocean carriers to reduce capacity. Carriers are going to have to remain particularly vigilant and disciplined as economic downturn runs its course. For logistics service providers and freight forwarders and shippers, the disruption to sailing schedules will continue to come at a relatively quick pace. So any supply chain professionals with that goods that are moved on ocean will need to maintain very close communications with their service providers so that they can quickly react to these service disruptions. Beyond reducing vessel related cost, carriers will need to introduce even greater efficiencies into their container flow network by reducing empty related costs. For example, in North America, the most obvious container related savings would be domestication of international boxes and greater use of street turns of containers. Domestication. Domestic reload is a process by which international ocean carrier market their containers for the domestic carriage of goods. So this allows intermodal marketing companies to use ocean carrier container asset to stuff domestic cargo into the container and to position that box to the coast rather than ocean carriers having to pay for the empty move of the container back to the coast. There are ways in which other stakeholders within logistic supply chain can also cut down the cost. For example, execution of street turns. This can be a shared saving between the ocean and motor carriers too. So street turns our case in which motor carrier can connect an import delivery with next export or domestic pickup opportunity. So the motor carrier and the ocean carrier can even the shipper would share the cost savings for not having to move an empty container back to the depot or an empty container from the depot to the next cargo pickup location. Let's look at IMO 2020. Starting in January 2020, all ocean-going vessels globally have to use low sulfur fuel which contains sulfur oxide levels of 0.5% or below. Now, this was a significant drop in sulfur oxide levels compared to the use of what commonly is known as CST 380 bunker, which is high sulfur fuel which had sulfur oxide levels of 3.5%. So in comparison, higher sulfur fuel at 3.5% sulfur oxide levels versus 0.5 for the use of low sulfur fuel. So now carriers had two main approaches to compliance with this new regulation. Number one, use the new high costly sulfur fuel. Number two, use of scrubbers that would be retrofitted to the vessels that would be used to cleanse or scrub the sulfur oxide from the high sulfur fuel exhaust. The price differential between high sulfur and low sulfur fuel was assumed to be about $250 per metric ton, and on this basis many ocean carriers are decided to retrofit their vessels with scrubbers. Now the scrubber retrofit cost roughly $7 million per vessel. So we have seen instance of little over 5 millions, and we have seen instance in which almost $10 million. But roughly speaking, it is about $7 million per vessel. At the time of investment, it was a sound decision to use these scrubbers, but now that we have seen this recent dramatic drop in oil prices, and this is a result of combination of Saudi-Russia price war and also a drop off in global demand of oil due to pandemic. These oil prices have been at historic lows, so the price differential between high sulfur fuel and low sulfur fuel is flattened to roughly $65 per metric ton. We have seen even cases as close as $50 per metric ton. And unfortunately, this makes the scrubber investment a loser, at least from the near future now. Oil prices are not expected to sharply rebound in the near future, so the ocean carriers that bet on the use of scrubbers will be additionally challenged against the rest of the market because they have already spent the money in the investment of scrubber retrofit. And we also want to note that many of these ocean carriers who had previously instituted low sulfur fuel surcharges as cost recovery upward for the compliance of IMO 2020 have taken to now waiving these charges due to the fact that the bunker prices are simply very, very low. So this is another challenge for ocean carriers who are trying to bully their revenues, but it is also a piece of good news for logistic service providers and for shippers because these fuel cost savings are being passed on to entire supply chain. When it comes to recovery for these industry, in the initial stage of the pandemic, The pundits were all hoping for a V-shaped recovery in which the recovery on the demand side of the economy would immediately bounce back in an upward trajectory after the precipitous drop. But as we see these extensions and prolonged curtailment of movement in the global pandemic, we stay at home orders and social distancing requirements, the economic impact is becoming increasingly severe. Western economies are largely dependent on consumption. That is why consumer confidence is such a strong indicator of economic forecast. And when the consumer is not confident enough to make purchase beyond the essentials, let us say food and water and perhaps toilet paper, which was a hot item for a while, and perhaps that consumer has recently become unemployed due to economic downturn, the demand for these consumer goods is going to remain pretty depressed by current indicators, and economic recovery is going to take a longer sort of U-shaped recovery in which demand is likely to be depressed until earliest Q4 of 2020. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos.